The topic of the talk this evening is artist-initiated and independent initiatives within Tehran in the art scene. It's a massive, endlessly interesting subject, but in the interest of being sort of productive and targeted, we're going to limit it to visual and plastic arts, as well as the current moment. There's also the question of expectations. Anyone who's been to a discussion about Iran is very aware that we can fall into the realm of endless cliches about censorship and how difficult it is to live in Iran, et cetera, et cetera. So we're going to assume that we have a sophisticated audience and sort of proceed accordingly. I think the presence of the panelists assembled here tonight is sort of testament to the fact that there's a lot happening within the Iranian art scene. All of us, well, except for me, live in Iran. Shahab is based in Frankfurt at the moment, but this is one of the benefits of being in Dubai. And there's also a lot of you in the audience who are curators, writers, collectors, etc., from Iran. I think all of us can agree that Tehran, in spite of a spat of recent gallery closings over the past months, some voluntary, other not, is certainly not short of activity in the realm of the arts. There are openings every week. There are at least a dozen functioning art magazines, a contemporary art museum, a house of the arts, which hosts exhibitions, film screenings, discussions, a city theater, and a number of other cultural initiatives in this city of 15-some million. To take just one example, there's the Azad Art Gallery, for example, which was launched 10 years ago, started as a commercial space and then eventually became more of an independent space that pioneered a lot of the first video in the country. And then we'll talk about Fereydun's space as well. But a brief background on the recent history of the Tehran art scene, for those of you who don't know. A great deal of the infrastructure of the art scene as we know it today was built in the 1970s, perhaps a bit like Dubai or Abu Dhabi. There was a recognition that the arts were worth investing in. And it was one way of sort of putting yourself on the map of building a world-class city. It was one of the, and so the then Empress Farah Diba commissioned the construction of cultural centers, a museum of contemporary art. In 1967, she launched an avant-garde arts festival in Shiraz, which hosted the likes of Merce Cunningham, John Cage, Stockhausen, and finally built up one of the finest collections of modern art in the Middle East, which is sort of the subject of countless rumors and conspiracy theories to this day. At the risk of sort of fast-forwarding through the ensuing 3 decades, there was a revolution, one that also recognized the value of visual culture, but that had a decidedly different relationship to it. And successive regimes and ministries of culture under an Islamic state have also had different takes on the role that visual culture should play in society at large. But suffice it to say that an art scene was born over these decades, or what one of our panelists has referred to as a collection of art islands, or multiple scenes within Iran, which brings us to the current moment. So the mandate of this panel is alternative art spaces, but you might ask alternative to what? Alternative is a vocabulary that we've inherited from somewhere else, and it's very seductively broad. Artists will always negotiate. They'll improvise, they'll estimate, make do with whatever conditions that they face. That improvisation may have meant something in pre-revolutionary Iran. It meant something else in revolutionary Iran. It certainly means something else in 2009 as we're facing presidential elections in the country. But while we can debate definitions of alternative, what we can agree on is that these are primarily artist-initiated projects without the support of foundations, without the support of the state, or even moneyed patrons. They're often small, they're makeshift, they're fleeting. The only proof of their existence may be a photograph or a story or a panel discussion like this one. They're also arguably quite normal in the context of the Iranian scene. So even before the revolution, there was a great tradition of people opening up their homes, their offices, their warehouses, et cetera, for artists to serve as studios, as exhibition spaces, et cetera. So in this case, the so-called alternative may in fact be be the rule rather than the exception. Our distinguished panelists gathered here span the pre-revolutionary and post-revolutionary period. They also live in Iran, which is one of the luxuries, of doing this in Dubai. What we can accomplish tonight in the modest 1 hour that we have is to begin a conversation about a number of these initiatives that they're familiar with, and to perhaps think about this question of the alternative. What does it mean, and how does it affect how we experience art from Iran and also within Iran? And I'd like to make that distinction. There's certainly the question of art that's exported from Iran, and we'll come back to that later tonight. In related fashion, we'll inevitably touch on two phenomena that I'll flag here and that have great relevance for not only the Iranian scene, but many other scenes within the greater region. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice. I'm struggling. One is the growing internationalization of the exhibition scene, so the sudden interest in shows devoted to faraway regions and peoples, whether they're framed as Iranian or Islamic or Middle Eastern. This is what you can refer to kind of as the enlarging of the conversation in the art world. And the second related development we should touch on is the growth of new art cities and centers such as Dubai and Mumbai. This is the so-called Dubai effect. What does a city like Dubai and the UAE at large represent to an art scene such as Tehran's, with its auctions and its art fairs and its museums to be? What advantages does it represent, and what are the attendant risks accompanying its rise? So now I'll introduce our panelists. I'll start with Feridun Av. Many of you know Feridun in Dubai because of his work as a freelance curator with galleries such as XVA Gallery. At the moment, he's curated a show at the Basement Gallery. In Iran, he's known as one of the primary patrons of the arts, having run at least two spaces out of Vanak Square, one a sort of storefront, white cube space, and another based out of his family's home. Artists ranging from Shirin Aliabadi, Ghazal, who's in the audience today, Farhad Moshiri, Shahab Futui, and Abbas Kiarostami have staged some of their earliest interventions in Feridun's space. Before the revolution, he was artistic director of the Zan Gallery, as well as the art director of the Iran-America Society. I should also add that Feridun is an accomplished visual artist who has shown much and often at home and internationally. Shahab Futui, who's on to my left, is an artist. Oftentimes in his practice, he's used public space in inventive manners. I think the first encounter I had with Shahab was his installation of portraits in an abandoned or half-constructed building off the Chamran Highway in Tehran. Since then, he's initiated a number of projects, including Center for Side Effects, which he'll talk about tonight. At the moment, he's studying fine arts in Frankfurt. We have Amir Ali Ghasemi on my right, far right, who's something of a one-man curator, gallery, museum, and book publisher at once. In 1998, he launched a gallery in, sorry, I need to clear my voice. No, it's better than this morning, thanks. Yes. In 1998, Amir Ali launched a gallery in the parking garage of his parents' home, and 4 years later, an online site called parkinggallery.com, and swiftly embarked upon documenting artists' work on his website rather frenetically, while also organizing exhibitions and workshops and publications since then. His most recent projects include Lost in No Space, which was based in Istanbul, Sideways in Tehran, and the International Roaming Biennial of Tehran, which I'll ask him about this evening. And last but certainly not least is Sohrab Mahtavi, who's on my far left. Sohrab is co-founder and editor of a bilingual magazine called TehranAvenue.com, which, as its name suggests, is based in Tehran and focuses on the city as viewed by its young writers who come by and large from an artistic background. And I'm painfully aware that I'm the only woman on this panel, but there could have been others. There's Ghazal in the audience. There's Bita Fayozi, who has a show at the moment at the B21 Gallery. There's Neda Razavipur, who I mentioned. There's a number of women who are also interested in these so-called alternative projects.